Now we'll move to the important, very, very important topic called recursion. So recursion, so modeling using recurrence relation, solution of recurrence relations. So how we will define these recurrence relations and how these recurrence relations can be proved using mathematical induction, and how we write the recurrence relation in our programming. So we see these three concepts in this topic. Recursively defined function definition. A recursive or inductive function definition of a function consisting of two steps. Basic step is specifically a value of function at 0. The recursive step gives a rule for finding its value at an integer from its value at smaller integers. A function f of n is the same as sequence a0, a1, and so on, where f of I is equal to ai. So here basic steps is nothing but in recursion, the recursion should be proved with the basic element, like for example 0. Specify the value of the function at 0, then slowly you go for finding the value by incrementing till what is the maximum value mentioned. If you can recall the factorial program that you have written using recursions in C programming, so we mentioned what is the value if n is 0. So we used to write that n, if n is equal to 0, then return 1. Otherwise, return n into n minus 1. So this procedure we used to use. So that means always in the recursion, first the basic step need to be considered, like specify the value of the function at 0. And the recursive step, whether you may go for decrement or increment, that depends upon your logic. Give a rule for finding its value at an integer from its value at smaller integers. So a function f of n is the same sequence a0, a1, and so on up to ai, where f of I is equal to ai. So that means you start with 0, then 1, 2, 3, 4, you go up to the n value that was mentioned. For example, if you are calculating 5 factorial, then 5 into 4 into 3 into 2 into 1 into 0. So it is making in reverse, and you can also do in forward direction. So recursively defined functions, suppose f is defined by f of 0 is equal to 3 and f of n plus 1 is equal to 2 into f of n plus 3. Then find f of 1, f of 2, f of 3, f of 4. So f of 1 is equal to 2 into f of 0 plus 3. So what is f of 0 is 3. So substitute here 2 into 3 plus 3 is equal to 9. So like that you are supposed to do for f of 2, f of 3, f of 4. So whenever you get the f of 2, so 2 into f of 1, already f of 1 was computed, the same result can be substituted there. In the same way, in the f of 3 case also, 2 into f of 2. So f of 2 is already computed, so the corresponding value will be substituted there. That is 2 into 21 plus 3. So the advantage of recursion is you no need to recompute again and again. Already which is computed in the previous step, that will be substituted there. The resultant value will be substituted there, and the computation will go on. Give a recursive definition of the factorial function n. So we know the factorial function, how we will define. So f of 0 is equal to 1, and f of n plus 1 is equal to n plus 1 into f of n. So there in our programming, we have written in the decremental fashion from n to, but now we are writing in the incremental fashion, like n plus 1 into f of n. So if it is f of 1, then 1 plus 1, f of 1, then you are supposed to make it as n plus 1 into f of n. That is f of n value 1 into 2. So that will become f of 2. Like that, it will keep on going. Recursively defined functions give a recursive definition of this one, sigma k is equal to 0 to n ak. So first, what is the basic step you are supposed to do? You are supposed to prove it for the 0. So the first part of the definition is sigma k is equal to 0 to 0, ak is equal to a0. Now you are supposed to prove it for the subsequent values. The second part is, so you are supposed to do like this, k is equal to 0 to n plus 1, ak is equal to, already we made this, like this: sigma k is equal to 0 to n ak plus a n plus 1, because you have added a mathematical induction here plus 1, so that will be added here, plus a of a n plus 1. The same is the case with Fibonacci series also. You might have done the programs like Fibonacci series, the factorial program and GCD program. These kind of things you might have seen in the recursive manner. The same thing we are revisiting here. The Fibonacci number are defined as follows: f0 is equal to 0, f1 is equal to 1, fn is equal to fn minus 1 plus fn minus 2. So find f2, f3, f4, f5. So f2 is equal to f1 plus f0. So what is f0 is equal to 0, f1 is equal to 1. So 1 plus 0 is equal to 1. f3 is equal to f2 plus f1. So is equal to 1 plus 1 is equal to 2. So f4 is equal to f3 plus f2. So 2 plus 1 is equal to 3. Just like that, it will go on incrementing. Then you will get the Fibonacci numbers. And you are supposed to mention what is the maximum number that you can achieve with this Fibonacci number. So when you are doing this operation recursively, you keep on checking whether the numbers, the given number of the Fibonacci to reach is less than or equal to the numbers that is generated using Fibonacci. So if it is less than or equal to, then you print it, otherwise you exit from the program. So this is the way you will write the Fibonacci numbers. So recursively defined sets and structures. So recursive definitions of a set have two parts. The basic step specifies the initial condition collection of elements. So the recursive nature is quite common. It is either it's general recursion or recursion defined on the set or structures. Always you are supposed to follow two steps. First, you are supposed to check for whether what is the initial value for the n is equal to 0 or the initial element, and how you are supposed to make the recursive steps that need to be defined in the step 2. The basic step specifies an initial collection of elements. The recursive step gives the rule for forming new elements in the set from those already known to be in the set. Sometimes the recursive definition has an exclusion rule which specifies that the set contains nothing other than those elements specified in the basic step and generated by applications of the rules in the recursive step. So that means even though you perform recursion, the elements are common from the initial step. That is what the meaning of this. Some functions in some cases you will find like that. We will always assume that the exclusion rule holds even if it is not explicitly mentioned. So remember, if you make a factorial program of 5 factorial, the value will be decremented like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Once it is achieved 0, then afterwards there is no further decremental because it is already achieved 0, and we have already mentioned the initial step that if n is equal to 0, then return 1. So that is reason we will always assume that the exclusion rules always holds, even if it is not explicitly mentioned. We will later develop a form of induction called structural induction to prove results above recursively defined sets. So we'll later develop a form of induction, that is first what is the initial, then if you go for recursion. So this is called as structural induction. So structurally we are going to define what is the subsequent steps to prove results about recursively defined sets. So here recursively defined sets and structures, subset of integers S. So basic step is, for example, 3 is belong to a set of integers. So obviously this is true, it is initial one. Recursive step, if x is belong to S and y is belong to S, you don't know what is x and y, but then if you add x and y, that resultant value is also in S. So initially 3 is in S, then 3 plus 3 is equal to 6, then 3 plus 6 is equal to 9. All these additions recursively will also fall under the same set. Another example, the natural numbers n. The basic step 0 is belong to n. The recursive step is if n is in n. You don't know what is n, you can substitute whatever the value n. If n is in n, then n plus 1 is also in n. So initially 0 is in S, then 0 plus 1 is equal to 1, then 1 plus 1 is equal to 2. All these resultant recursive elements, recursive computations and resultant values of the recursive computation will also fall under the n. So far, we have seen the concept of integers, integer sets, real sets, these kind of things we have seen. Now we'll move on to a special kind of concept called strings. String is the collection of characters or numbers or mixture of characters and numbers. And sometimes the string may be empty and string may be having some value. So that means there is a possibility that string can be empty and also string may be having some set of characters. So by keeping it in mind, because this already we have seen in the programming like C programming, like where you define the array of characters or a character pointer. In that case, you may initialize the string to null, or you may initialize the string to some set of names, some a particular name. These kind of things you might have seen. So definition: the set sigma star of strings over the alphabet sigma, that is here the alphabet set. This is sigma is alphabet set, and this will study in the theory of that is theoretical computer science or the formal languages. In all those places, we will get this kind of symbol. The set sigma star of strings over the alphabet sigma. Remember, whenever the star appears, you make note of this. Whenever the star appears, 0 or more occurrences. So that means the string may be null also. That is 0 occurrence. String may be null also. So if there exists plus, then 1 or more occurrence of the characters. So star means 0 or more occurrence of the characters, and plus means 1 or more occurrence of the characters. So please make note of this. These conventions you must remember. Otherwise, it will be somewhat confusing to you to understand. So you are supposed to make note of this. Star means 0 or more occurrence of the characters. Plus means 1 or more occurrence of the characters. So the set sigma star of strings over the alphabet sigma. Basic step, for example, lambda. Lambda is an empty string. That means null. So string can be null. So null belongs to the sigma star. Why you are saying sigma star? Because this particular set consisting of 0 or more occurrences of a character. So sigma is an empty string. Recursive step, if W is in sigma star and X is in sigma, then if you combine these two, then the resultant character will be in the sigma star. Clear? So this is, that means you are taking a character belongs to something and you are taking another character which is belong to sigma. If you combine these two, then that particular resultant string, whatever is there, that will be belonging to the sigma star. The reason is this particular string may appear or may not appear. If it is null, then obviously the sigma star is the set that will support 0 or more occurrence of the characters. So if sigma is equal to 0, 1, these are the set of characters, or these are set of alphabets, we can say, which are available in this sigma. Then the string in sigma star are the set of all bits strings. That means whenever you say star, what can be included? You can also include a null character. That is null character, and 0 may appear because null character with 0 is null character with 0 is 0 only. Next is null character with 1 is 1. Null character with you can also multiply this 0 0 0 1 1 1 0 1 1 0. See, you can make any combinations. Then you can simply grow the set. So that is the reason. If you pick up an element, if you pick up an alphabet or a character, so better you will call instead of character alphabet, because alphabet is most suited and repeatedly used in our literature also, especially to indicate the grammar that we'll study in the last chapter of our course. So let we'll call it as alphabet. if W is an alphabet which is belong to sigma star, so this alphabet may be empty also, okay, or this may be some other value also. So in such a cases, you will get a sigma star as the empty character. Since empty character is involved in the resultant set, so it will become star. I hope by this time you got the knowledge of what is star and what is plus, and why we will indicate star, because 0 or more occurrence of the alphabet. If sigma is equal to a comma b, show that AAB is in sigma star. So for that, we are supposed to prove that first the empty string is in sigma star, and you take one first character or first alphabet A. Okay, A belongs to sigma, so A is also belong to sigma star. Since A is belong to sigma star and A belongs to sigma, then A is also belong to sigma star. Since A belong to sigma star and B belong to sigma, so if you add these two, then automatically AAB will also belong to sigma star. Because in sigma star we will make several combinations. So that means here 1 0 1 1 1 1 up to 1 1 you have seen this. You can also see 1 0 1 1 1 0 0 0 0 1. So you can make any combinations of multiple combinations, because there is no restriction on how many combinations you have to make. Because star, this is 0, you can make one null combination, that is nothing, or you can make any number of combinations. So I hope by this time what is meant by string, you have understood what is meant by string. So how you will represent the string? String is a set of alphabets, or we can say group of characters or group of alphabets. And sometimes string can be empty, string can be of any length. So if you want to measure, if you want to represent a empty string, then you will use the lambda symbol, which means the empty string. And in the actually in the literature, sometimes instead of lambda, you may also see epsilon symbol for the empty string. But to have the difference in the textbook, okay, they have used lambda, and this belongs to symbol was used for as the belongs to only, and sigma star. In some textbooks, you will find empty string as the lambda. Sorry, empty string as lambda, and in some textbooks you will find empty string as sigma. Okay, so not sigma. This belongs to symbol. Okay, so this is what the thing. So then we have seen the sigma star and sigma plus, and we have concluded that if an empty character, if any character belongs to sigma star and any other character belongs to sigma, then we can the resultant combination will lead to a string that belongs to sigma star. This we have seen so far. I hope by this time you come to know what is meant by string and what are the how to represent this string in a set representation. Length of a string, given a recursive definition, length of W. Length of string means you are supposed to start with the initial, that is null. Then you are supposed to count the how many alphabets. So you take the first alphabet. If the alphabet is not null, then you count as 1. Then take the second next alphabet. If the second alphabet is not null, then you are supposed to count it as 1, and you are supposed to add it with the previous. You are supposed to add it with the previous value. That is, the first you to consider the empty string 0. So length of empty string is 0, plus next if alphabet is available, the length of next alphabet is 1. So 0 plus 1, next alphabet 1, next alphabet 1. Like that you keep on adding, and finally the end of string is reached. Then whatever is the resultant value you have, that is the length of the string. So lambda, that is length of lambda, that is the empty string, is equal to 0. So length of wx, that means this is a string, is equal to length of w plus 1 if w belongs to sigma star and x belongs to sigma. Otherwise if x is also belong to sigma star, then it is 0. So like that you keep on adding this, and finally when you reach the end of the string, whatever the resultant value you have in the L of wx, that is the length of the string. Next, another example is balanced parenthesis. Balanced parenthesis is most frequently used in the structured programming like C programming language. So whenever you write bracket open, for that you will go for bracket close. And if you write a if statement, the if and bracket open, then condition, then bracket close. That means for every opening bracket, there should be a closed bracket. Okay, this is what is called balanced parenthesis. If opening bracket is there and there is no closing bracket, then the compiler will give you error. So how it will represent, actually how the compiler will recognize the opening bracket and closing bracket? Again, it is having a program that it will read the program and will always check whether for every opening bracket and there is a closing bracket or not. So for this, again, it will use mathematically. We can also represent this concept in mathematically in this form. Like in the basic step, if you won't mention anything within the bracket, that is, so opening bracket and closed bracket belongs to a set, like this balanced parenthesis set P. So this opening bracket and closed bracket may also come in this in the following form. Like if W that is some string or something is belong to P, then the opening and closing bracket maybe coming as a predecessor. Then you may get some characters here, then which is also belong to P. Sometimes this particular string may also come within the parenthesis. Okay, and you may get a character first, then you may go for parenthesis. So that means these possible three combinations will be there. So if you write like this, it is just like a statement, opening and closing bracket, then some other statement, and if condition, opening bracket, some condition, closing bracket, like that, and some statement, opening bracket, and you won't mention anything and close bracket. Still the compiler will not give you any error because opening and closing bracket is there. So that means these are the three possible combinations with which this recursive step can be defined. So show that the bracket open, this open close parenthesis and open close parenthesis and this parenthesis is in P. So first you are supposed to pick up the bracket open. So bracket open is not belong to anything. So keep like this. So then bracket open and bracket close is belong to P, and next immediate bracket open and bracket close is also belong to P, but bracket close is there. So for this bracket close, already bracket open was appeared, so we should keep it in memory, and whenever this bracket close appeared, then immediately we have to decide that okay, this already for the bracket open that we have, bracket close is achieved. So in general, how it will be recognized? Usually it will be recognized with the help of stack operation. So this can also be recursively defined, and also we can use stack operation to. Okay. The question given is okay, which is belongs to set opening and close parenthesis, that is balanced parenthesis set. So in order to prove this, usually you may take a stack. You all know that stack is a first in first out fashion. So first you insert bracket close, so bracket open in the stack. Next is also bracket open, and next is bracket close. So whenever the bracket close appeared, pop the next element. So you are supposed to pop the two elements from the stack. So if you remove the two elements from the stack, so you got bracket open and close that belongs to parenthesis, that is balanced parenthesis set. Next, you read the next character or next alphabet, that is bracket open. Next alphabet, bracket close. So whenever the bracket close appear, the condition is pop the elements, pop two elements from the stack. So first element, this is the first element, and this is the second element. So when you pop these two elements, so whenever when the elements are popped, so you don't have any that is the top pointer will be decremented, and you find that the bracket open and bracket close is belong to P. Next, you have read the next character. So because up to this character you have read, so you read the next character. So once you read the next character and put it in the stack, so the stack, what is happening here? bracket close. Whenever the bracket close is there, what you are supposed to do? You pop two elements from the stack. So whenever you pop two elements, now stack is empty. So when the stack is empty, nothing will happen. So the program will be terminated. So you will get the bracket open and close here. This is also belong to P. So if you step by step keep it in some string or memory and go for checking of this, then it will become, the output will become like this. So this entire string is belong to P. So this is the way, with the help of stack operation, we can decide whether this whether the given string is having the balanced parenthesis or not. Because stack plays a very major role in the stack plays a very major role in the dealing with the recursion. I hope by this time you got how to utilize the stack for dealing with the recursion and also to prove the balanced parenthesis. So if I ask you what is the output of this program, so the program is very simple. So anyone can answer this. So what could be the output of this program? The output of this program is hello world will be printed for how many times? Infinite number of times. The reason is you are calling the main method again and again. You are calling the main method again and again. So this way of writing the functions is not said to be recursion. So that means recursion is calling a function by itself till an exit condition is reached. So that means here there is no exit condition. So where to exit, there is no discussion on this. So there is no condition also to exit. But if you look at a factorial program, in this, if n equal to 0, return 1. Else return into n minus 1. So this is a simple program. Here a function is calling itself return fact of n into n minus 1. N into fact of n minus 1. So this is the thing. So if a function is calling itself, okay, a recursion is calling a function by itself. Till now it is okay. Till an exit condition is reached. There is no exit condition in this case. But here an exit condition is there. Whenever the n is decremented and it will become 0, then return 1. That is what is called exit condition. So till an exit condition is reached. Now this will become perfect recursion, and the program will be terminated whenever n is equal to 0. Otherwise, it will fall into an infinite loop and will keep on printing the characters or keep on executing the things. So thereby what will happen? Sometimes system will get stuck up. So if you work with memory, that means if you perform operations on the memory, then the program sometimes may be crashed. So otherwise the system will get stuck up. This kind of things you will find if you won't manage the recursion properly. So recursion can be easily deal with stacks. The reason is, as you have seen in the stack, so always first you push the element into the stack. So first main was pushed. Next main is pushed because main is calling itself. Again main is pushed. Again main is pushed. So how long it has to push into the stack? Because stack will be having some limitation. So that is the reason they keep on calling the main function, because there is a lack of exit condition. So this program will keep on loading the main method in the stack. Thereby, it will lead to a problem called stack overflow. So this is the stack will be overflowed, and the memory will be filled with these recursions only. Thereby, the system will get stuck up sometimes. Okay. So while coming to this case, in case of factorial, if you go for stack operation, then the first value, if I have given the factorial of 5, the first value is 5. So 5 is not equal to 0. So next 5 into fact of 5 minus 1, that is 4. Next 3. Next 2. Next 1. So next 0. Whenever 0 comes, then return 1. Whenever the return 1, now here it will be exited. Because when return is there, the program will be the function will be terminated and will go to the main method where it was called. So now 1 into 2 into 3 into 4 into 5. This will be kept in memory. So the recursion require more memory, because it will be formed like a tree fashion in memory, and recursion is very fast. Recursion is fast and recursion require more memory. But if you won't manage the recursion properly, then it will lead to a disaster. So this is increase in space, increase in space, and increase in speed of execution. That means if you use recursion, the space complexity increases and time complexity decreases. So we have seen previously the space complexity and time complexity when we discussed the joining of sets. That is the concept. So space complexity is the amount of memory required for a program to run its completion, whereas time complexity is nothing but the amount of time or the number of processor cycles, CPU cycles required for a program to come to its completion. So recursion is very fast in execution, but recursion require more memory. And recursion can be easily dealt with stacks that we have seen now. For every recursive approach, or we can say every recursive approach can be written to iterative approach with some effort. So that means every recursive approach that what you write can be written to iterative approach. That means every recursive approach can be converted to iterative approach. That you will study in the data structures concept. If you build a tree, you can build using the recursion approach, or you may also use it via iterative approach. So iteration does not require much space, and iteration. The speed of execution is that much is not there in the iteration, because the time complexity is also increases, but the space complexity decreases in case of iteration. In the recursion, the space complexity decreases and the time complexity. So space complexity increases and time complexity decreases. So this is what the difference between the recursion, iteration. Recursion require more memory. Recursion is fast, and recursion can be easily dealt with stacks. So this is what recursion means. And with recursion, you have so many things to solve. Like for example, the sorting techniques, like quick sort, merge sort, that can be solved using recursion. Like binary search, this can be solved using recursion. Inserting, removing, traversing, inserting, removing elements from a tree. It may be binary tree. Next, traversing a binary tree, binary or binary search tree. So for this, you use in order, pre-order, and post-order traversals. Like this, many things like factorial, Fibonacci series. Next, the GCD, okay. Length of a string, many things. These are the things. Anything where you need to traverse till some point, all these things can be written in a recursive fashion. So the balanced parenthesis is also like that. So structural induction, to prove a property of elements of a recursively defined set, we use structural induction. Show that the results hold of all elements specified in the basic step of recursive definition. So always you have to start with the initial step. If there is no initial step, the recursion will fall under infinite loop. So you please remember, recursion should always have an exit condition. That is what is called basic step is. Next, recursive step, show that if the statement is true for each of the element, use it to construct new elements in the recursion step. The definition, the result holds for the new elements. So the same thing, induction and recursively defined set. So that is, if 3 is under the set and k is also under the set, if you perform multiplication on the 3 and k, then add with any other thing, then it will also fall under the same set. That is what the solution given in this particular slide. As now, just now I told you the full binary tree, operations on the binary tree, such as the traversal operation, height calculation and all. If there is only one node, then the height is 1. If you have two nodes, then height, that 1 plus the maximum of the left subtree and the right subtree. Like that, you keep on recursively go till there is no further children in that tree. So the basic step is the number of vertices of a full binary tree. T consisting of only a root R is n of t is equal to 1. So along with this Fibonacci series, you can also, okay, binary search is also defined here. Okay. So the recursive step can be defined like this: n of t is equal to 1 plus n of t1 plus n of t2. In the same way, the calculation of the binary structural induction and binary tree. So the number of that is, if t is a full binary tree, then n of t is less than or equal to 2 power h of t plus 1 minus 1. The reason is binary, the name itself telling you that binary. Every node will be having maximum of 2 children. So that is the reason we will make 2. If it is ternary, that means every node will be having 3 children. Okay, maximum of 3 children. Then we can make 3. So like that, if it is a tree, that means you don't know how many children will be there for every node. Okay, if it is a binary tree, then maximum of 2 children will be there. That is the reason we will represent with 2. Okay, so this is the structural property of the binary tree was mentioned here. So recursive factorial algorithm, as just now we have seen the recursive factorial algorithm. If n is equal to 0, then return 1, otherwise n into factorial of n minus 1. Next is recursive exponentation algorithm. So a power. So recursively you can do it and you can get this particular value. Recursive GCD algorithm, greatest common divisor of two numbers, positive numbers, and a is less than b. So here A and B are the two positive numbers, and A is less than B, that we have taken. And if A is equal to 0, then return B. Otherwise, return GCD of A mod A comma 0. B mod A comma A. So till how long? Till A becomes 0. This repeatedly will go on. Finally, whatever the resultant value will get, that is the GCD of the things. Same thing, binary search tree. Sir, binary search algorithm. In order to go for binary search, first of all, the elements must be in sorted order. So pick the middle element and compare whatever the element to be searched. That must be compared with the middle element of the sorted list. If the element is less than the middle element, then search in the left hand side. If the element is greater than the middle element, search in the right hand side. So this is what the division was made here. So like that, recursively you are supposed to search and get the value. So this is what binary search algorithm. The merge sort is the best example for this recursion. And also we have seen, along with merge sort, quick sort, and binary search. All these are the best examples with which you can solve using recursion. So merge sort will also work in such a way. It is iteratively splitting a list into two sublists of equal length until each sublist has one element. So, for example, if there exists a list of n elements, what happens? N by 2, n by 2. So equal parts it will divide. And it will pick the first part, n by 2 part. Again, it will split into 2. Okay, so that is n by 4, n by 4. It will pick up the second part and will divide exactly into 2 equal halves. That is n by 4 and n by 4. Total how many n by 4s you got? Total 4 n by 4s you got. So 4 splits, 4 n by 4s you got. So again, this n by 4 will be further divided into 2 equal parts. How long it will be divided? It will be divided till you get the smallest unit of elements. That means single element. Till that time it will divide. Then once it is divided, then the first element and second element will be compared. Okay, and those two will be added into one set. Okay, next is third and fourth element will be compared, and if it is so, then if there is any improper order, they will be placed in the order according to the ascending order or descending order. Usually it is in ascending order, what will be placed for the sorting technique. So that third and fourth will be kept in one set, like that 5 and 6, like 7 and 8, like that. So that is in the next step. In the next step, what it will do is, these two subsets, the first subset and second subset, will be compared, and it will become the next subset. So like that, it keep on going and will form the entire sorted list like this. Okay, so at this position 8, 2, 4, 6, 9, 7, 10, 1, 5, 3 is there. So what it will do, it will divide into exactly 2 halves. So n by 2, n by 2. Okay, so if it is n by 2 means it is dividing in the powers of 2 power n. So it is in the powers of 2. So here n by 2, 2 halves, 2 into n by 2, like that. Okay, next in the next step, it will divide into 4. That is n by 4, n by 4. Like how many n by 4s was divided? 4 into n by 4. Okay, so then like that, it will keep on dividing. Then once you get the finest element, that is the single elements, then this 8 and 2 was compared. Then 2, 8 will be there. Then 4 is compared with 2 and 8. So 2, 4, 8. Like that, it finally combines all the things. So that is the reason it will give you the time complexity as order of n log n. The reason is it will divide into halves of 2 power n, that is 2 power n elements in each half. So if you apply logarithm on both sides, so it will become n log n. So finally, the time complexity will become the order of n log n. So merge sort is the only sort that will give you the complexity of order of n log n in the best case, worst case, also in the average case. While coming to the quick sort is also like a divide and conquer technique only, that is which will divide and afterwards conquer. That is afterwards they will add by sorting. So quick sort is also fall under the divide and conquer technique only, but quick sort will give you the time complexity of n log n. It will also work in the same way as the merge sort. So it will also, for this what we will do is we'll choose the pivot point in the quick sort. But here there is no pivot point. that you will study in the again in the data structures and these concepts. So for having understanding, I am telling you in the quick sort for the best case and average case, you will get the order of n log n as the time complexity. But in the worst case, the time complexity is order of n square only. But this is the only sorting technique, that is the merge sorting technique, which will use perfect way of divide and conquer, and also perfect way of recursion, and will give you the time complexity in the best case, average case, as well as in the worst case also, as of order of n log n. So what is best case, what is average case, what is worst case? Best case is nothing but almost all elements are in the sorted order. Maybe few elements are not in sorted order. That is what the best case. Average case is nothing but not every element in sorted order, but half of or 60%, 70% of the list is not in sorted order. The worst case is nothing but which is completely in sorted order. That is what the meaning. So in all these three cases, it will give you the best solution. That is what they call merge sort. So recursive merge sort will be like this. So procedure merge sort of L, that is the list of elements A1 to AN. If n is greater than 1, then you make it half. Then L1 is equal to, you assign half to L1. Then you assign another half to L2. Then perform the merge sort. Okay, again you call the merge sort of this one. So this is again if you call merge of L1 and L2, what will happen? Again merge sort. This first half will be taken. Again it will be divided. Okay, and in the first half, whatever the first sub half is there, that will be assigned to L1. What is the second half sub half is there, that will be assigned to L2. So it will be done in that way. So this is what they call recursive procedure. So finally merging will also be done in the same way. So once the sorting was done, that is, you may use the less than symbol or greater than symbol depending upon the way of sorting that you want in the ascending order or descending order. So here are the practice questions for you with respect to this functions and recursive functions. In this, we have also seen very, very important concept like strings, how you will represent the strings. Okay, string representation. The questions are with the string representation, calculation of string length, when we'll call a particular value as a string. So in string, we have seen two cases. One is star case and plus case. Star case means 0 or more occurrences of characters or alphabets. Plus case means 1 or more occurrence of the characters or alphabets. So these two concepts we have seen in the strings concept, just to recall them and answer these questions.